Hello there, my name is Thomas O'Regan, and over the last 3.5 years, me and my wife have built a large residential property portfolio. We started with $45,000 of capital, and we've grown that to $4 million of properties investments that we own today. And what I wanted to speak to you guys about today was one of the points of due diligence you guys must do when you buy a property, and that is get a building and pest inspection report. Actually, before you even get the building and pest inspection report, make sure that when you're signing the contract, it has a subject to building and pest inspection report on the contract. Okay, so when you look at a property, you're not an expert, you're not a builder, you're not a certified building inspector. You can't see things that potentially may be meaning that the property is structurally unsound or it has termites, things like that. These things, you think you would be able to see these things that are like potentially going to cost you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but you can't. You're not a professional. So it's always important on every single purchase you do to get a building and pest inspector to look at the property. Honestly, you might go and look at a property and you think, gee, this property looks terrible. Like it needs a paint job. It looks like the walls are peeling. It looks like it has so many issues. But but if you get a building and pest inspector to look at the property, it might turn out that it's not. And that would just mean, okay, maybe this property needs a little bit of a cosmetic renovation, but it is structurally sound. So that means if I put a little bit of money into it, like a small amount of money, and renovate it, then it will be as good as new. But this is where people really go wrong. They'll walk through a property and they'll go, "Wow, this property really looks terrible. I'm not going to buy this. This is not a good investment." And then they'll go to another property and they'll go, "Look, wow, this property looks amazing. It looks newly renovated. Nothing could possibly be wrong with it." And then they sign the contract. They don't bother getting a pest and building report. And then it turns out 5, 10 years down the track that the property is seriously structurally unsound and they need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it fixed. Now, the cost of getting a building and pest report is a cost. It's $500. It's not cheap. Well, in my opinion, it's cheap because the alternative is far worse. It's 100% worth the cost to get a building and pest report, even if you don't go through with purchasing the property, because of what's in the report. Now, yeah, my point is, I I don't even physically inspect the properties because if the property needs to be renovated, and it's a cosmetic thing, I know that cost is it's totally worth the cost to renovate a property cosmetically than it is to buy a property that is not cosmetic, like is cosmetically renovated, meaning it looks nice, but then there's some serious structural issues wrong with it. So um, that's my rant about getting a building and pest report. So most of the properties that we've bought in our portfolio are interstate properties, and we have not physically inspected these properties. And you're probably sitting there thinking, well, that's just stupid. That's just crazy. Well, if you're an investor, it's actually not, because what is important to you, or what should be important to you if you're switched into the investment mindset, is the things that should be important are: is this property going to get capital growth, and is this property going to cash flow? Am I going to get a tenant? If those things are ticked, then it like what you physically walking the property will not make any difference to the property's capital growth potential. um, the property's capital growth potential is tied to a lot with what is happening in the marketplace. It is tied a lot to where the property is, where it's located, and yeah, and more than that, I think, is what is happening in the marketplace. When I say what is happening in the marketplace, I mean what period of the market cycle is this property in? Is the property is the property market in a slump where you're buying a property? Is it flat? Is it going up? Those things are important. Okay, so and I can say this confidently because, as I said, all of the properties, all of the investment properties me and my wife have bought, we've bought them sight unseen, and all of the properties we've bought, we've doubled our money, if not 2.5 times our money in a very short period of time. Not just one of the properties, all of the properties. And all of the properties have been bought based on what period of the market cycle is this property in? Has it got capital growth potential? Am I going to get a tenant for this property? And does the tenant or does the rent in the marketplace cover all the costs of owning the property? That's what's important. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.